Radio.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. Let's do this, man. Today is Monday, April 12th. 2021, 103 days into the new year, only 262 days left. We are live from a bunker that is somewhere in the middle of nowhere, a total undisclosed location. But it is beautiful, getting better every day. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? I did. Busy, but it was a great weekend. And as we get things started here, I just wanted to say this. I want to get this done out of the gate. Driving this weekend, I'm on the freeway. Got pulled over. I did. I was speeding. Highway patrol. And I didn't think I was speeding. But that's how that stuff goes, right? So I just want to say thank you to a certain officer out there, I don't want to say his name, who gave me a break. And, and if I said his name right now, would somebody else from the CHP be listening and then go, wait a minute, you let this guy go, what happened? You're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be out there writing tickets. And so I'm not going to do that. But thank you. And it was really funny. And I'm just going to say this. He walked up to the car, came up to the passenger window, and I roll it down. And before he could say anything, I just jumped in. What'd you pull me over for? And I thought, and he kind of jumped back like, whoa, slow down there. And I know my voice, and I wasn't even thinking. And we have a brief conversation, of course, license, registration, insurance, and I didn't have my insurance card. Had to call Rita for that. But anyway, so he goes back to his car, and I'm like, oh, man, this just blows, man. This just blows. And he comes back, and he says, hey, Mr. Church, I'm going to let you go. And he said, let me tell you something. So this is my community service to all of you. He says to me, sir, that would walk up to this car and you came off like you did with them, you'd be in a lot of trouble. And I'm like, what are you saying? He goes, you don't just get in my face. I think he said grill. go, what'd you pull me over for? And so I'm going to let it go with that. Okay. It was all on me. And he just, I don't know why, but he said, I'm letting you off with a warning. So thank you, California Highway Patrol, man. It was a nerve-wracking moment, but they let me go. Let me go. I didn't sweet talk. I didn't name drop. I didn't do anything. He was pretty angry with me, and I don't know why. He went back to his car and calmed down, but he did. So there you go. So thank you. Thank you. And my advice is don't get in their face, man. Just don't do it. It's a losing proposition. This time I didn't lose. But I got to say, I was behaving with my right foot after that. All right, let's get this show cracking. We got an amazing week lined up this week. It's a very special night tonight. Whitley Strieber is here, and nice exclusive with Whitley. He's here to announce and talk about his new book. It is called Jesus' New Vision. So get ready for this show tonight. It is Get ready. Whitley Strieber is here tonight. Tomorrow night, Serena Wright Taylor is back with us, and we are going to go through everything UFO and ET related and all the breaking news out of Puerto Rico. So that is tomorrow night. Serena Wright Taylor, our favorite person, she is here tomorrow night. Wednesday night, Tracy Austin is here. And she has also got a new book out, and it is called I Survived Beyond and Back. It's a series of stories and true stories from people that have survived a near-death experience, and that may include Tracy. So we'll do all of that on Wednesday night. Really looking forward to that. She's a great show host, TV presenter, and of course she's right here on KGRA as well. So it's really cool to have a visit from Tracy Austin. That's Wednesday night. And then, of course, Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right. Now, let's get straight to it. I want to talk about UFO Megacon. It is coming up June 6th through the 12th. Here we are. We're halfway through April. That's it. April, May, boom. The conference is going to be here. I cannot wait for this. It's June 6th through the 12th in Laughlin, Nevada. It's being held at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. Very nice, right there on the river. The entire event is 7 days long. I will be hosting 2 panels. All of the information, I think they may have a schedule up now on the website. I got the latest schedule today. So I've got a panel on Wednesday night and a keynote panel on Friday night. It's going to be incredible. And then, of course, sky watching and everything else. And I'm probably going to be doing little shared hosting duties there, too, as well with Bob Brown. So there you go. I want to hang out with all of you Fadernauts. And the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I was talking to Eric, Awakening Man, over the weekend, right before I got pulled over, by the way. I think it was his fault. And I'm talking to Eric, and he's like, hey, man, what do I got to do to, get tickets to UFO Megacon? I said, man, every night on the show, banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go over to the website, click. It's right there. It says UFO Megacon, Laughlin, Nevada. Click on it. Really? Yeah, Eric. I'm like, really? Okay. All right. So it's UFO Megacon on your way. Yes. The banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And looking forward to seeing all of you out there, man. The Fadernauts are going to be in force. And it's, look, seriously, conference, Laughlin, casino, restaurants, fun, sky watches, Richard Dolan, Danny Sheehan, Billy Carson, Johnny Enoch, right? I mean, the list of presenters, go and check it out. It's incredible. And we're going to go and do it. June 6th through the 12th, Laughlin, Nevada. Banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. All right, follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. Okay? Kick it off there. Sandbox, hashtag F2B on Twitter. I was just over in Spreaker in the chat room. I was just over on YouTube in the chat room hanging out with everybody. And there you go. And, okay, all right, enough of seeing my face there on YouTube. But, yes, I was just over on YouTube. And there you go. All right. Jess Ann says, the backdrop looks great, Jimmy. Love the, yeah, it does look pretty good behind me. I've run out of room. I've got a bunch of other stuff that I otherwise, and I can't squeeze everything. There's only so much, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do a third row down below, and but just only so much time. So, okay, all right, so thank you. Yeah, it does look pretty good. Feels good in here as well. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. All right. Let's get to the breaking news. This is incredible, by the way. Archaeologists have hailed the discovery of what is believed to be the largest ancient city ever found in Egypt, buried under sand for thousands of years, which experts said was one of the most important finds since the unearthing of Tutankhamun's tomb. This is the largest ancient city, it's known as Aten, ever uncovered in Egypt. And it's pristine. It's incredible. The site was uncovered near Luxor, home of Valley of the Kings, and the team began excavations just in September of 2020, 6 months ago, between the temples of Ramses III and Amenhotep III near Luxor, 300 miles. Now, when you go and check out the news on this and look at the pictures, look at the wall that is going around the city. Curves. It's like brand new. It's just incredible. Pottery, jewelry. They found it's like they just abandoned the city, and somehow it got buried in sand and preserved. It's absolutely incredible. I think we need to pay a visit there in March of 2022 when I head over to Egypt. All right, now I got some bad news about bacon. Bacon is in the news. More food supply shortages could be on the way as pork is being added to the growing list of products that may be missing from store shelves in the coming months. That's right. Now, we all know throughout 2020, the demand for meat increased, causing grocers to place limits on quantities that consumers could purchase. Now, analysts are predicting that a shortage of pork could send hot dog and bacon prices soaring if the products can be found at all in stores. That's right. No more bacon. Incredible. What's next? Haagen-Dazs? You going to take that from me too? Haagen-Dazs? Man. Whew. Let's get the show cracking. All right, man. Yeah, that's the city right there. Thank you, Kaz. Happy birthday, Kaz. Look at that. Look at the curved wall. Do you see it? This is just one of the areas. Yeah, that's just one little spot. Look at that. That's absolutely incredible. Incredible. Aten. All right. Looking at Kevin Korber's pictures. Yeah, Kevin, you're getting too good at the screen grabs, dude. Getting too good. All right. Happy birthday to today, Ed O'Neill. Ed O'Neill is 75 years old, married with children. Al. Claire Danes today is 42, Homeland. And she did that Disney movie, right? What was the one where with the forest? I can't remember. She's great. David Letterman today is 74. Shannon Doherty, remember her? She's 50 years old. Beverly Hills 90210. I can't even remember her name on that show. Andy Garcia today is 65. And I was thinking about this. What is Andy Garcia's best movie? What's his best movie? And I'm going to go, I know. I'm going Godfather 3. Yeah, I am. Herbie Hancock today is 81. Had a chance to see Herbie play our Christmas party for Elise's in a tent in our parking lot. And I sat there on the floor in front of his grand piano. I think he had a drummer, upright bass player, him on grand piano. And I sat this close to him for like 3 hours. It was insane. Herbie, I'm just sitting right here, Indian style, right next to Herbie Hancock on the floor. It was incredible. Guitarist Pat Travers today is 67. What was that song called? Snortin' Whiskey? Echo and the Bunnyman guitarist, Will Sargent, today is 63. I think Will is one of the most creative guitarists ever. Just absolutely incredible what he did with Echo and the Bunnymen. The Killing Moon, right? Yeah. Lips Like Sugar. That's what I'm talking about. Happy birthday, Will. Our dead guy's birthday today is David Cassidy, 1950 to 2017. And, I had his brother Ryan on the show a couple of weeks ago. And today is David's birthday. It just felt a little strange to me. But, David was, of course, Keith Partridge on the Partridge Family, son of Shirley Partridge, played by his stepmother, Shirley Jones. In the 1970s, musical sitcom, The Partridge Family was one of the game changers, not only for me, but for the rest of the country. This role catapulted David to teen idol status as a superstar pop singer of the 1970s. Nothing got bigger for David than that. David died of liver at the age of 67, and according to his daughter, Katie, his final words were, quote, "So much wasted time," end quote. Happy birthday, David. On this day in history, 1633, Galileo is accused of heresy and ordered to turn himself into the Holy Office to begin trial for holding the belief that the sun. And of course, he said he would never teach this heresy ever again. He was convicted and was under house arrest for the rest of his life. Fate or fact? All right, here you go. This is a good one. In 2005, Jose Betancourt won a $5.5 million Texas state lottery. Texas wired the $5.5 million to his account. It was there. He shows up at the bank to make a withdrawal, but he's met by federal drug agents. That's right. He had to forfeit the winnings because he bought the winning ticket with the proceeds of selling 36 grams of cocaine to a federal informant. That's right. They fought it, too. They fought it. They were like, how can a jury confuse drug sales with luck? Oh, man. He faced the rest of his life in prison, and he had to give up the money. There is your fate or fact. Tonight, Whitley Strieber is here, and this book is a great one. I encourage everybody to get it. You can go to unknowncountry.com, Whitley's excellent website. We'll be talking about all of that tonight. And the book is called Jesus' New Vision. Tomorrow night, Serena Wright Taylor is here. We're going to go through all kinds of updates with UFOs and ET and everything that's going on right now in Puerto Rico. Wednesday night. Tracy Austin is here to talk about her new book, I Survived Beyond and Back. That's right. It is a collection of near-death experiences and those that survived it. And then, of course, Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right, let me hit this River Moon coffee. River Moon Coffee, rivermoonwellness.com. All the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Best coffee in the world. No question about it. The absolute best. All right, last week I ruffled a few feathers, but not as many as I thought. But there was, and of course I'm referencing George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, and the story that they originally published has now been picked up by the mass media starting today, and it's starting to make its rounds. So I went and did a little deep dive on this, and there were a few media outlets, like the 5th and on the 6th, that reported the story correctly with headlines that said drones swarm Navy ships. Right? Okay. And variations of that. But you go and you read those original media releases from last week, and it's right there. It's black and white. Right? There's no mention of pyramids or pyramid shapes or UFOs or ET or UAPs. At that time, the Navy still is, by the way, steadfast in saying drones over our ships off of San Clemente Island over, a 4-week period, 5-week period, 3-4 different nights. And they were investigating and getting to the bottom of it. But it's drones. It's the key word here. So anyway, I went out and did another sweep through the media today, and the Navy is saying a couple of things. And I'm going to put maybe some of this in writing and get it out there. I'll blog it or do something with it. But the Navy is saying that they filmed drones. And the Navy is now saying there are some implications that are going down right now that it was the Navy. It was U.S. Navy drones being flown off of San Clemente Island, and that the Navy may have forgotten to let the ships know that they were launching these drones. And it's as simple as that. How this trickled into, and I don't know if it's going to stick in the UAPTF task force report that's going to be out next month, I don't know. They pushed the date back to it's no longer the 1st. It may be June 25th. It may even be beyond that. But my point being that when I go out, I know that everybody wants this to be, in the video, a TR-3B. Everybody wants this to be a black project. Everybody wants this to be ET. Everybody, and I get that. And when you first look at the video, if you don't know anything, well, the flashing lights weren't there. Let me just say that. You've got something interesting. But the flashing lights give everything away. That's the first thing. The second, these videos were leaked because they're no big deal. They don't show any crazy technology. And there's another point. There's no crazy. They're drones. Okay, they're just drones. There was another point that I found today that I had to go back to the drive. I didn't see it in the drive, but I may have missed it in the original article. Stated this from the Navy, said that these drones were on station for about an hour, and then they left. They left because they were running out of battery power. All right? That's it. And you go and you read that statement, and now, and I read a couple of other things today, That knows now exactly what's going on. They know now that it's their drones. They know, I'm talking about the ships and, the Kidd and the USS Russell and so. They know now that they came from San Clemente Island. It's now a big nothing burger. And that's how this is going to play out. I want to back up to last week. Looking at this video and then putting out there with headlines that there's flying pyramids above our U.S. Navy and they're swarming, that's a huge leap. And you need to wait. I know it's a sensational thing and the video is cool and okay, go ahead. But stay in a zone. Stay in a safe zone, right? Let it play out for a day or 2 or 3 until you have some more information. Because in the end, if you're going to go, say, flying pyramids, and now you're going to get caught, and you don't want to be embarrassed. But now, I think that the overwhelming outlook on all of these, on the video and everything that's in it, is that it's a drone. It's got flashing lights on it. That's it. That the Navy filmed a drone. When John Greenwald, who we love, he asked the Pentagon, said, yeah, these are real videos. He didn't say, yeah, these are real flying pyramids. That's not what the Navy said. They said these are videos that we filmed. Yes. That doesn't indicate E.T. It doesn't indicate a black project. It doesn't indicate a foreign adversary. It's not Russia. It's not, it could be. But it doesn't indicate any of that. All right. And so, yeah, it's an authentic video that was filmed by the Navy. And that's it. And the story, and this is my whole point of rambling right now. If there was anything crazy going on here, if this was something that was unexplainable, whether it's from a state actor or not of this earth, this story is huge. The story died on the vine, and because it's just drones. The story did not blow up. It did not take off because people can look at the video and draw their own conclusions. You're not going to be able to twist this one into something that it's not. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber is here. His new book is out. It is called Jesus' New Vision. What is going on here? It's a great book. Got a lot to talk about tonight with Whitley. Tomorrow night, Serena Wright-Taylor going to be talking about Puerto Rico and all of the UFO and ET updates off the island. Wednesday night, Tracy Austin is back. I Survived Beyond and Back, a collection of near-death experiences. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back with our guest, Whitley Strieber, after this short break.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on Jimmy Church Radio Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day. As an after-dinner coffee or Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward. This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in Ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at gettheti.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to gettheti.com. That's gettheti.com. If your health game is off, get on tea. Gettheti.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's gettheti.com. Gettheti.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade. Not your father's radio show. On the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Whitley Strieber is here. He's here to announce and talk about his new book, Jesus' New Vision. Tomorrow night, Serena Wright Taylor is here. She's going to be giving us some updates, UFO ET related, on Puerto Rico. Tomorrow night, Tracy Austin is back. And she's got a new book out too, and it's called I Survived Beyond and Back, a collection of near-death experiences. Thursday night, of course, is another Fader night with open lines all night long. But tonight it's Whitley. That's right. As the author of such books as Warday, Community, cultural figures of our time. Jesus, A New Vision, draws together information from scholarship, archaeology, and his own researches to discover the Jesus story that has been buried in generations of largely faith-based scholarship. It reveals the dramatic story of a man of great genius who was convinced that he had a special connection to God, and as a result lived a life of extraordinary passion and power than that of any other human being. Whitley's website, of course, is unknowncountry.com, a place where I go and steal all of my best material. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Whitley Strieber. Whitley, good evening, man. How are you?
Oh, thanks for the great intro. And I must remember to steal some more material from you.
Well, I just gave you. I just gave you conceived.
Yeah, it's good to be back, Jimmy.
It's good to see you, my friend. And I don't know when we're going to be able to break bread and hang out once again, but it's got to happen soon.
Soon, it's going to happen soon. I mean, I'm fully vaccinated and going out all the time. In fact,
well, you look great, by the way, and you got a fresh shirt on for the show. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, well, you told me I couldn't be seen, so I had every reason to. I ate my dinner. Most of it's on my shirt, but it doesn't look like that. I think you must not be able to see it.
We're not running in 4K, thank goodness, right?
Right.
Now, Whitley, we have so much to discuss tonight, but I'm going to start with this, and I want you to take this the wrong way. Okay, deal?
Oh, I'll be glad to.
Okay, this is the last book I thought that you would write. And it caught me by surprise. I was totally excited about it and called you right away and said, this is a book so many should have written but are afraid to write. But it came from you, and I was completely caught off guard. Do you think that this is going to surprise a lot of people?
Well, I hope so. I sure hope it will. It's not a... I don't think it's gonna. I don't know if coming from me, it shouldn't surprise people too much because I write a lot of things. I mean, I wrote Superstorm and Warday and Afterlife Revolution. I wrote New World. So I've written a lot of things as not necessarily alien connected. So, it's not that, and that's always been a career problem for me because people like the same thing again and again and again from the same author. But I move all over the place, and this is something that's interested me for years.
I remember, this is quite a long time ago, but I remember you and I having a conversation, and not to go back to communion, but indirectly we kind of need to, because there were always an underlying religious connection to most of your writing and your experiences. But I think a lot of that was open to interpretation by the reader. But it was there, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's a spiritual connection more than a religious one, because
Right.
religion implies, being a Baptist or a Catholic or a Hindu or something like that,
Sure.
Muslim. But spiritual is a broader umbrella, bigger umbrella. And my spiritual life was revolutionized by my contact experience in a number of different ways. The most important one was that I realized that the soul is real, and that level of existence is true. It's there. And this was an enormous surprise to me, because before I became involved with the visitors, I was a pretty secular person. We were in the Gurdjieff Foundation, which is not a spiritual practice. It's more of an intellectual and emotional practice intended to wake the person up, but not it's not like soul related and prayer oriented. And you can be in any religion you want to if you're in a practice like that. If you had asked me in 1984 whether or not God existed, I would have said probably not. I would have said, I think the universe is its own master. If you had asked me whether or not the dead existed, I would have given you a very confused answer. The reason being that I'd been seeing and interacting with them most of my life, not just my adult life, but most of my life. And yet I found it hard to believe a thing like that. Where were they? what were they? What did they do every day? I mean, where were they? Then the visitors showed up, and my spiritual life kind of blasted off. And it wasn't long, a few more years, and I was actually meditating every night, not just with a dead person, but with a group of dead people. And they were living or could emerge right into the edge of this world. It was absolutely astonishing. They were, I would say they were quasi-physical presences. One time, one of them had physically materialized, and other times, maybe I glimpsed them once in the woods, I don't know. But people would see this group of 7 balls of light kind of drifting through the woods behind the house. And at 11 o'clock at night, when I started meditating, they would come down on the roof of the meditation room with these loud thuds. So they weren't ghosts. And Annie would, she'd hear the thuds, and she said, finally, well, Whitley, I want to try this. I want to go in the room and be with you. And I said, well, listen, Annie, I warn you, what happens is that you hear the thuds, but then they're in the room and you can't see them. And you can feel their presence very strongly. And it's very, very strange. So she said, well, I want to do it anyway. So we go in the room together, and I'm sitting on the floor and she's sitting in a chair, and the thuds come, and I feel these entities come down into the room, and all of a sudden Ann says, I'm not ready for this. She hightails it out of there. But in other words, this was not your conventional experience with ghosts. It wasn't an experience with aliens. It was an experience with people who, in fact, indicated to me that they were from between the lives and that they were waiting to be reborn into the physical.
I'm with Annie. I'm with Annie on that.
Oh, I know it. Jeff Kripal, my dear friend, made the mistake of sleeping in the same room with me at the Esalen Institute a couple of years ago. And I warned him. I said, look, a room like this, we were at this, it's a beautiful place, Esalen, in Big Sur, right on the Pacific, a bluff overlooking the Pacific. And we're in this very beautiful room. I mean, it's a Esalen. It's not a beautifully decorated. It's not like a palace. It's a simple room, but in a beautiful spot, because it's got a little deck and it overlooks the ocean, and it's just glorious. And I'd been in that room a few years before with Ann, and the visitors had waked her up so much it pissed her off. And she said, Whitley, don't they get it? It's night, time to sleep. And I said, not for you. I mean, for you maybe, but not for me. Anyway, so Jeff is in there, and one of them shows up, and he experienced it. He said, I heard a voice from inside my body, my own voice, but an inner voice say, oh my God. And then I felt like the world was caving in around me. And that's how it feels to be near them. But you get used to it, actually. It didn't bother me at all. I just got up and meditated the same way I usually do when they show up in the middle of the night.
Back, let's go to the early 90s, that period. Were you starting to research Jesus and early philosophy with religions back then?
Not me. Anne was. Anne was intensely interested in religion. And I was more a conversationalist. She was the reader. She read, oh, God, Anne read so much anyway. I never saw anything like it. I mean, Anne could read a book in the time it takes to sit down to read a book. She would read everything. She read physics. She read theology and, heavy-duty stuff, novels. She could easily polish off a mystery novel in an afternoon and evening. And a longer book, a bigger book would take her 3 days. So she was reading a lot about this, and we would talk.
Right.
And, I made I attempted to go back to the church, and Anne was a big volunteer, so she would, wherever she was, you pointed her at a church, and she would immediately be volunteering until we came to Santa Monica, and she signed up for everything at the local Catholic church, and they wouldn't let her do a thing because of her name, Whitley Strieber.
Mm-hmm.
And, they saw the cover of communion, and these people thought it was something kind of an invasion of demons. So we quit our various attempts to be Catholics at that point. That was in 2004.
Well, the reason why, and this is where I want to go right now, when I'm reading through the book, and this is a lot of research. This type of research takes time, and it just seemed to me like there was an awful lot, maybe a couple of decades worth of interest here to go and explore, because when it comes to the historical record of Jesus, there appears on the surface to not be a lot. And that's where skeptics or debunkers, when they come to Jesus, will always point that out. And then if you go deeper, there's a lot of information out there, but it takes time to get it done. Yes.
There's a lot. And it's immense. The Gospels are among they're among the richest documents written in the ancient world. The only extensive document written about a child in the whole ancient world is the infancy gospel of Jesus. The only one. And as I point out in Jesus: A New Vision, when you read it, if you've never heard of it, folks, and it's understandable because it's an apocryphal gospel, it's not in the canon, and most people who don't study this have never heard of it. But it's an absolutely fascinating document. It's a group of stories about Jesus' childhood from the age of 5 until he arrives at the temple at the age of 12. Anecdotes. Now, why is it not in the canon? It's not in the canon because the anecdotes portray a very difficult and frankly quite dangerous child, because he's capable of performing miracles, only he can't control it, and he's always accidentally killing children and so on and so forth in this. But here's the fascinating thing. If you take out the miracles, suddenly you have a story of a very frustrated little boy who is extremely brilliant, trying to cope with living in a world that has no room for a child like that in his station in life, the son of a carpenter. And it becomes one of the most extraordinary documents in the whole Jesus literature. And so when I did that in my book, and it's the first time anyone has ever seriously studied the infancy gospel, and it's an absolute revelation, because you know darn well what happened. What happened was a lot of family stories probably about this very child got on. The miracles were added to them by other writers, because in those days they weren't so attached to the idea of factual writing as we are today. In other words, if someone thought something should have happened, they would just make that up. And since it was Jesus, there should have been miracles involved in these situations where he hit another boy and so on and so forth. So they assumed they created the miracles out of whole cloth, and without really understanding just had begun to enter literature at that time. Herodotus, whose work a little earlier is a mix of fact and fiction, is one of the first historians, and now Tacitus was just starting to write in that era, and he was one of the first to really try to write facts, to try to discover the facts and put them down as facts.
So,
but that wasn't true of the gospel.
How did you get the research done? did you just depend on that specific book in the Gospels, or did you venture out beyond that?
Well, if you look at the bibliography at the back of the book, you will find that I ventured out way beyond that. I didn't need to read all of it because I had read a lot of the books. I read a lot of Tacitus and Josephus is the Jewish historian who lived in the time of Vespasian, just at the time that around 60 and 70 AD, when the Gospels were just beginning to happen and the Jesus story was kind of percolating under the surface, and the Jews were in a major state of rebellion, and Jerusalem would soon be destroyed by the Romans. And Josephus was a Jewish writer and who realized which way the wind was blowing and allied himself with the Romans. But again, he wasn't a historian in the modern sense. And so you can't be sure of anything he writes as to whether or not it actually happened.
Yeah, you have to separate fact from fiction.
As best you can. And the way you do that is you read the other authors who were writing about the same subjects, and you try to come up with a combination of narratives that add up to something that probably did happen. And there's another way to do it too, and that is to look very, very carefully at the stories in the context that they would have been written. And you have to know a lot of archaeology and history in order to do that, because archaeology has greatly improved our understanding of these histories, so-called, from that era. And I'll give you an example. In the Acts of the Apostles, there's a story of St. Paul going to a town, and he was being followed by a young woman who was possessed, in their terminology. And he basically got annoyed by her constant following him, and he drove the devil out of her. Now, what happened that suggests that there's some truth to this story is this. He was then dragged before the magistrates by the owners of this girl because she had been a prophet, and they had been making money off of her prophecies. After Paul drove out the demon, she couldn't prophesy anymore. Now, in the ancient world, in the Roman world, you didn't just go to the police or file a lawsuit. If you wanted to take somebody to court, you had to grab them and drag them right there to the magistrate. You had to do it yourself. And so these people were really annoyed because they'd lost their source of income. And there, you see how in there Paul really did something for that girl. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been any story of the magistrate. You don't make a thing like that up. Of course, the magistrate then had Paul whipped and so forth, and then to his embarrassment found out that Paul was actually a Roman citizen, and therefore it was illegal to have whipped him. But he apologized, but he didn't say to Paul, stay in town, be our guest, we're so sorry. He escorted him out of town because he certainly didn't want this guy anywhere near his town.
Now, we've got a few minutes before the break, and when we come back, I want to discuss the soul, and we're going to go pretty deep into that. But before we get to the break, we have a conundrum here that I think many discuss, and I want to know how you approached it. Was Jesus the Son of God? Because I'm confused as to how that goes with the family life with Mary and Joseph. Was he the Son of God, or did he just have a relationship with God?
Everybody has a relationship with what we think of as God. How Jesus understood this is very different. His understanding of deity was incredibly sophisticated for the time that he lived in. He was no ordinary believer. This was a world that was literally demon-haunted and God-haunted. They were everywhere, and people believed in them implicitly. And we can get into why Jesus ended up being a God later, when we talk about what happened after his resurrection. I'm not going to answer the question directly because I want to get into it in a few different ways. This is, remember, the most remarkable human story ever told, but it's a deeply human story first. And when the religious leaders pushed him up onto a pedestal and made him into a statue and said to us, worship him, they took away the magical and extraordinary power of his teaching. Jesus was first and foremost one of the most powerful teachers who ever lived. That was his first place in the world. And what he did and what happened to him is the most remarkable single human story. Now, I've skirted around the was he God or not on purpose, and we can go on after the break and get into the whole thing a little deeper, because this whole business of turning him into a god was a political act that took place in the 3rd century and 4th centuries AD. It had to do with Rome needing to replace its gods with a new god.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we have continued to look at Jesus that way ever since. But the best place to look for Jesus is not in the church or in the sky or outside of you. The best place to look is in your own heart and your own soul. This is where you will find this teacher waiting for you.
That's why I think, and I agree with you, that's why I think Monty Python's A Life of Brian is a historical record.
I love it. Love it.
Stay right there.
The Life of Brian.
Oh, stay right there, Whitley. Whitley Strieber is our guest tonight. I am your host, Jimmy Church. The new book is called Jesus, A New Vision. Of course, I want you to visit unknowncountry.com, Whitley's excellent website. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright-Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Whitley Strieber is here. We're talking about his new book, Jesus, A New Vision. Tomorrow night, Serena Wright-Taylor joins us. It's going to be great, talking about Puerto Rico and UFOs and ET. Wednesday night, Tracy Austin and her new book, How I Survived Beyond and Back, a collection of NDEs, near-death experiences. Tonight it's Whitley Strieber. And Whitley, I was talking to Race Hobbs earlier today, and he wanted me to tell you hello. So I got that out of the way because I'm sure that he's listening. Yes. So there you go. I want to talk about the soul. And I speak about this often, but I want to get to a definition of that in just a second with you. And the reason why I have been so fascinated with it is when you dive deep into the historical record, I mean, deep into Egypt, you don't go 5,000 years ago, where these conversations were happening, and they understood those ancient civilizations probably more than we do today. And it's not an accident they were clearly defining something. But this is the situation I find myself in. Is the soul the same as consciousness? Are they interchangeable? Are they the same thing? Or are we talking about two different things?
Well, Jimmy, I always appreciate these extremely easy questions that I can answer very quickly and easily. Well, I think that I can only tell you my experience and what I've learned. My primary source of information about the soul is very old. It's the pyramid text from the Pyramid of Unas in Egypt, which is considered the oldest religious text in the world. However, I don't think it's a religious text. I think it's the first part of it, the first couple of sections of it, are the last text of soul science that we have. This text is an incredibly sophisticated hieroglyphic masterpiece carved on the entire interior of this pyramid. And what it is about is the ascension basically to Orion, to the soul's return to Orion, and how the soul functions and what is needed for the soul to ascend after the body dies. And it contains a systematization of the relationship between three things: the physical body, what we would think of as a kind of an electric body, we would call it the second body or the astral body, and a third presence, which is the soul. The first presence, the physical body, in this group of three, this triad, would be the active part. That is to say, it is acting and moving through time, and all of the impressions it's gaining are being moved into this electric body, the second body, which in the Egyptian system is inside the spine, which they regarded as a serpent of light, surrounded by the seven taniter, or now called the seven chakras, which were smaller serpents that were turning and drawing. With their turning, they were drawing like a whirlpool all of the experiences the body was having and transferring them into the spine, where they were accelerated to an intensity that the soul could perceive. And for the Egyptians, the whole process was, what were you giving your soul? What were you feeding it? And the text in the Pyramid of Unas is for the Pharaoh Unas to show him how to feed his soul in such a way that it is so light at his death that it will ascend. Now, where is consciousness in all of this? Consciousness is in all three. Consciousness is in the body, or the body would not be able to function. Consciousness must be in the second body, or it would not know what it was doing. But the real source of consciousness is much deeper. And when you get to the soul, the borders that we perceive of self are gone. The self lives in the ego lives in the body. But the soul is not our egos, because we have our souls have been here, many of them, a long time. This is why in Ecclesiastes, it is, in the King James translation, it is described as the soul returns to its long home. That is to say, the long shadow of memory that sweeps behind the soul into the mists of time of all it has lived and known. You know, if you were face to face with your own soul, you would be face to face with something enormous and something extraordinary. And I don't think we would even recognize our own souls necessarily until we were surrendered enough to them to feel the profound familiarity that they actually possess. But consciousness is not an individualized state. It's not something that lives in the head. It's not that consciousness lives in us, Jimmy. We live in consciousness. Consciousness is a field in which we are concentrations. We're concentrations in this consciousness field, little tiny concentrations of consciousness moving through time.
And back to your point, the ancient Egyptians would weigh your soul, right?
Yes.
They didn't weigh your consciousness, right? They weighed for you to move on. They weighed your soul. So clearly they had a definition between the two as well.
Oh yeah, the 42 laws of Ma'at. There are 42 commandments that you lived by those, and you basically came out of life with no regrets, and that turns out to be very, very important, because everything we do that's wrong and that hurts others leaves a mark. It leaves a regret. Everything we do that's good and helps others leaves something very different. It leaves a sense of joy. This is why Annie's constant refrain was have joy, because she knew that, she understood that joy was the key to heaven. If you're going to ascend, you ascend on a ladder of joy. That's Jacob's ladder. Is this spine that is the route of ascension, joy.
Now, when it comes to Jesus until the resurrection, there are a lot of stories, myth, if we will. We can even call it folklore, of him traveling not only back to Egypt but over to India, and he traveled and learned. My question is this: how much of that is in reality? And then the other part is, when we talk about the soul and the way that the Egyptians looked at it and practiced it for thousands of years, how much of that went through Jesus and then back to Jerusalem? Because the conversation of the soul is there in the scripture. How much of that did Jesus borrow when and if he went to Egypt?
Judaism is in part an evolution of Egyptian religion and in part a rejection of it. The serpent that is the source of, that is the spine in the body in Egyptian religion, becomes the source of knowledge and outside of the body, and extremely dangerous in the Jewish rejection of and reiteration of Egyptian religion. The need to live a good life survives. The 42 laws of Ma'at are condensed into the 10 commandments.
Mm-hmm.
And very well done, by the way. It's a very excellent, brilliant condensation. Now, Jesus comes along, and the following happens. He grows up. At the age of 12, he goes to the temple, and he's brilliant. And what is so strange is that a divinity wouldn't ask questions. He wouldn't need to. But young Jesus, who is actually probably not a divinity, but a transcendent genius child, asks questions, and the questions are terribly impressive. But they're questions. The questions of a brilliant human being, not the pronouncements of a God. Then he says, he tells his parents when they find him after searching desperately for him, well, I have to be about my Father's business. Then he proceeds to disappear from the history, from the narrative for years and years. And when he does return from Egypt, apparently, he is marked with the marks of a magician. He says so himself. And he is empowered. He goes to the Jordan River. He is baptized by John. That is to say, he is baptized in the blood of the Jewish people in that water. And thus empowered comes striding out of the desert after his experience there and begins his ministry. He brings with him ideas that reflect to some extent Judaism, but to some extent also the very ancient solar religion that started with the cult of Osiris and in Jesus' time was something like the cult of Adonis, I would say, the sun god Adonis, who was incidentally worshipped in the same cave in Bethlehem where Jesus was supposedly born, if the Bethlehem story is true. So it's all mixed up, and in the gospel writers were trying to make sense of something that was so strange and so completely incredible that they really did not have the intellectual equipment to do it. In fact, I don't think we do today. I don't think we could make, if Jesus did the same things today that he did then, I don't think we could make sense of it either. But we can look at it now from a bit of distance, and that's what I'm trying to do with Jesus, a new vision.
Now, I want to go back to your point, and I'm sure everybody just sat forward and said to themselves, Whitley said what?
Yeah, Whitley, you're asking some really open-ended, complicated questions.
And, well, let's go back. Well, if I can do this to Whitley Strieber, I've won. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Let's back up for a second. You said when he came back from Egypt, he had the mark of a magician.
Yeah.
Let's expand on that. What are we referencing here directly? Because we think of magician, we think David Copperfield.
Oh, I know. Well, we must not think that this is a very different world that we're talking about. Very different indeed. And there were two types of healers in this world. The doctors, who basically were they concocted medicines, and these medicines definitely did not work. And in fact, they had a reputation for killing people with their cures. And
not much different than today.
Well, it's considerably different. A lot of doctors are damn good today, thank heavens.
Right.
Listen, in those days, when you had a pandemic, which we'll talk about later, everybody got it. And everybody, half the people in Rome, of the Roman population, would die at one point in a pandemic. But in any case, in Jesus' time, the other healers were magicians. And how they healed is really very unclear now. Thoth, the great Egyptian magician of legend, used to heal the blind by taking spittle and rubbing it on their eyes, and he could heal the blind that way. That's how Jesus healed the blind man. He did the same thing. He used spittle and rubbed it on the man's eyes twice, which is exactly the procedure that is prescribed in the Egyptian magical texts, meaning that he was using an Egyptian method, an Egyptian ritual. It probably worked, but why? Because believe me, if you're going to cure a blind person, you're not going to do it now by saying, "Okay, I'm going to cure you," and spit on his eyes. It's not going to work. It did then, and it did then because what we know of as the placebo effect, and we dismiss it as the placebo effect, was actually an incredibly powerful healing tool that worked using the person's own body, their own internal ability to heal in ways that we have almost completely forgotten.
So it wasn't about Jesus like going one fish, two fish, right? It wasn't like a magic trick.
The story of the fish and the story of the fish is I don't want to get into it because it's a mathematical ritual, and it'll bore people if we start talking about the math of this. But Jesus was also a brilliant, understood mathematics brilliantly, and mathematics were very connected to divinity in those days. The perfect numbers were considered to be the voice of God himself. They were numbers of power were very important, and we've lost that completely. We have a much more emotional and heart-centered vision of deity now than they did then, at least in the Jewish and parts of the Greek traditions.
In this missing part of Jesus' life, when he was in Egypt, did the Egyptians write about it? Is there anything in the historical record outside of the Bible?
No, not to my knowledge. If it was ever written about it, it was lost. And I don't think it would be, because he was probably the son of a worker. I mean, I don't think he I don't think that they were wealthy. I think that what happened in Jesus's early childhood was that a rebel, an anti-Roman zealot called Judas, has nothing to do with the Judas of the Gospels, broke into the town of Sepphoris, the city of Sepphoris, which was a few miles from Nazareth, and opened the armory and got all of the weapons out of it, and was helped by the people of Sepphoris. And he then began to range around the countryside, raping women and stealing from anyone who had been was identified as being pro-Roman. And as a carpenter, Joseph wouldn't have had any source of income except working in Sepphoris, therefore for the Romans. So he would have had every reason to leave the area with his wife and the little boy, who may or may not have actually been his son, because the woman would be in danger, and so would he. And so they probably did leave and go to first to Bethlehem, and then on to Egypt. Would be my guess.
Now, when he gets back from Egypt, you said that he started his ministry.
Yes.
At that point, how did the disciples get assembled? How did his team come together?
Well, he has to have been incredibly charismatic and authoritative. When he first went back to Nazareth, they said, what is this going on here? I mean, what is this? We know him. We know you. And he's gone crazy. His family thought he'd gone insane. and it's a very telling moment in the gospel, the earliest gospel, which is not Matthew. That's simply traditionally the first gospel. In fact, we know that the earliest gospel was Mark, and it was written around the year 70 AD, probably in Rome, but possibly in Galilee. We're not certain. I would vote for Rome, but others might vote for Galilee. In any case, it calls him Jesus, the son of Mary. This is very important because it means that he was not the son of Joseph. And they knew that Joseph had apparently adopted him, and he was considered a bastard because the idea of the virgin birth doesn't come along until a good bit later.
Mm-hmm.
When first the later Gospels all change it. He becomes the son of Joseph because they realized that the Markian Gospel was revealing something that they did not necessarily want revealed. And to go back just briefly to the infancy Gospel, if he was considered the child of an unwed mother, he would have been teased and mocked in that society a good deal, and that would have probably explained his very belligerent childhood. He was always hating children and getting in fights, and the reason would be that they were mocking him. Now, when he comes back, he goes first to John the Baptist, and then there is the period in the wilderness. In the wilderness means that he was in a state of deep meditation and contemplation, probably not literally wandering in the desert, although in that part of the world he could have been easily, because there still is a lot of desert there. It's not changed that much. And the description in the Gospels of what happened to him in the desert is very important because it describes someone seeing aspects of consciousness that attach us to lust for the things of the world. And he rejects this. He does not accept it. And when he comes back, he has now committed himself to the good, which in the Gospel of Mary, God is not called God. In the Gospel of Mary, God is simply called the good. And it's a much better way of looking at this enigmatic presence that is the source of this universe. Because as soon as we personalize it as God, we make it into a human form in our minds unintentionally. It is not that. It is an abstract presence that my wife, after her passing when she was working with me on Afterlife Revolution, described as the yearning for that. She described it as the yearning that lies beneath gravity, that is the yearning under all reality. And in the book, she left a book open as she died here in this office. And it's a long story, but the book was open to a book called Physics from Fisher Information. And it was open to a page in which there was, in yellow marks a lot, underlined the phrase, "The Big Bang happened as a single primordial quest for knowledge. And now we can turn back to your question about consciousness. Consciousness is a kind of a wave front moving forward, seeking knowledge. All knowledge eventually, all knowledge will become part of consciousness, including each one of us, all that we have ever been, not only in this life, but in all of the ways and we have been in the physical world and beyond it. But when Jesus came back, after he left home, he said, well, basically, I can't do anything here with you. And he went down to Capernaum and began to walk along the shore, saying to these people, "Come, follow me." And it doesn't mean only literally follow me, get up and drop your nets and your fishing gear and walk with me. It means be as I will teach you. I am here to teach you how to connect with the good. This is his. And then the next thing you have, Jesus enunciates the Beatitudes, probably certainly the most extraordinary moral statement ever made in the Western world. And for my book, I retranslated them myself. There's nothing unique about my translation, but my Greek's good enough to where I can do it, and I wanted to do it myself so that my book would be my own would reflect my own understanding of the words.
Well, let me. I've got to take a break right here, a network break, Whitley. So when we come back, I want to hear your translation. I'm blown away by this conversation, and let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. I am engaged on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Whitley after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Whitley Strieber. We will get back to Whitley in just a second. Right now, I want to talk to you about Virtual Shield VPN. Virtual Shield is the only VPN that I use. I've got a huge studio, multiple computers, remote computers. Everything runs on VPN. I'm in an undisclosed location. My privacy is paramount, and you need to get your own VPN so you can enjoy what nobody knows where I am and what I am doing. And that includes all of my internet search traffic. Get Virtual Shield VPN today. It is built from the ground up for privacy. There's a strict no logs policy on everything that you do. That's first. Second, all of their servers around the world are encrypted. Nobody knows what you're doing, where you are, okay? That is the most important thing that you can do today. We all know what is going on. It's all simple to do. Go to virtualshieldvpn.com, virtualshield.com/fade to black. And when you do that, you will get Virtual Shield VPN for 50% off today. Or you can click on the link in the video description box below, head straight over. Again, Virtual Shield VPN for 50% off today. You've got to do it now. There you go. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. Whitley, did you say before the break my Greek? You speak Greek?
I don't speak Greek. God help me. I wish I could.
Right.
But yeah, I translated. I studied Greek in college, and I reconnected with it when I was working on this, and also with my Latin a little bit. I wouldn't say that I'm any sort of a scholar of Greek or Latin, but I did some of the translations myself, yes.
Now, weren't, and again, I'm not a religious scholar, but it's my understanding that most of the books, most of the Gospels were written in Greek, right? And then translated.
They were all written in Greek, yes.
Yes.
And they're not written by Greek, they were not written by elegantly educated people. The Gospels are simple Greek. They're very simple. The simplest one, actually, and the most easiest one to translate is the Gospel of John. Mark is a rough Greek. It's written in a less, it's written by somebody who could write, but not that well, and not with anything close to the grammatical elegance that is possible in that language with its many verbs and different verb tenses and so forth. The epistles of Paul are a very different story. He knew what he was doing when he sat down to write. He was obviously a very well-educated man, but Jesus probably spoke Aramaic. My guess is he was not literate. There's no indication anywhere that Jesus was literate, except in one place. It is mentioned that he sent a letter was sent by him to the king of the kingdom of Edessa, and that may mean that he was actually literate and could write, or it may simply mean that he had a letter written for him, which was the commonplace practice in those days. The Roman Empire, outside of the big few of the major capitals like Alexandria, Rome, and Athens, the vast majority of people were illiterate and never had access to teachers. Growing up in Nazareth, if that's indeed where Jesus grew up, he would never have had access to a teacher, because what teacher would come out to Nazareth? For what reason? Archaeology in Nazareth has never turned up anything except in terms of coins, except the very least valuable coin in that world at that time. It was a very poor place. A lot of the houses in Nazareth, and there were not many, were actually cave dwellings with paddocks in front of them. In other words, these were people who were still, to an extent, still living in caves. Very simple. This is another thing about Jesus. If he really came from Nazareth, he was really incredible, because this is not just a genius. This is a transcendent genius. And if there is any argument for him actually being God, this is the argument, that his genius was beyond the human, and certainly beyond the capability of anyone growing up under those circumstances. So anyway, the Greek of the Gospels is easy to translate. I'm not a great scholar myself. I would have more trouble with Paul, I have to admit.
You can tell in Paul's writing in the Bible, it goes up a few notches, not just one. Yeah, no question about it. Okay, the first translation
of the Beatitudes.
Yes.
You want to read it?
I do.
Beloved are the spiritual searchers, for they will be welcome in heaven. And this is my first beatitude, and I'm going to just grab here the other I don't have the regular translations with me, unfortunately. My second translation is, beloved are the sad, for they will be made cheerful. And it is, the first one is, blessed are the poor in spirit, in the regular translation, but that's not actually what it says. It's much closer to searchers in spirit than it is poor in spirit. The word poor is used in the conventional translation, and it makes it very hard to understand. What are they talking about? What is poor in spirit? And it means that who are uninformed in spirit. And I turned that around to mean spiritual searchers. A more literal translation of the first beatitude would be, blessed are those who lack spiritual knowledge, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But then that doesn't really make sense, because all you have to do is be ignorant of spiritual knowledge and you'll go to heaven. That's why I use spiritual searchers, because the Beatitudes Jesus' life was so much about acting on behalf of the good within you and around you, acting. And blessed are the sad, for they will be made cheerful. Now, those who mourn, the word in Greek that's used that they call comforted is much stronger. I think that mourning and comfort sort of go together, and which is why we end up with comfort. But the word is different. The word is really literally cheerful, that they will not just be comforted, but they will be made happy, cheerful. And then, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The word meek is used, but the actual word means gentle and strong. So I have, blessed are the gentle but strong, for the earth is theirs. And not that they will inherit it, because we're already here. The earth is, those who are gentle with the land and strong in its support and its protection, who are good landsmen, will be the owners and the controllers of the earth. And this will happen, that this earth is going to become a very difficult place to live. And the people who understand the earth and understand the planet are the ones who are much more likely to survive in coming times.
Well, it takes on a whole nother meaning
Yeah, exactly.
A whole nother meaning. I mean, the meek shall inherit the earth. It's so ingrained, right?
Right. What does the word meek mean? I mean, little people shuffling along in sandals behind everybody else, or what?
Well, I always looked at it in a more modern context when I think of those like me, right? I'm the meek, right? I don't control the earth. I'm not some powerful. I'm not, I don't run a company. I'm just a dude. So you could insert meek with dude, right? Or just the average. And I've always looked at it like that, for those of us out there that don't feel like we're winning, well, we're the meek, but eventually we'll inherit the earth and we're going to take it from, remove it from those in power. I think that's, how do I say this? It's a modern way of looking at it. It's a pop culture way, but it's so ingrained. We've heard the term so many times. I mean, how do we interpret it? I want to ask you this really quick. Back then, take us to that period in Jerusalem when his ministry is gaining strength. Did he have competition, Whitley?
Sure.
Was Christianity the competition? Were there others like Jesus talking about God and Christianity?
Christianity didn't exist and wouldn't exist for a generation.
Right.
After Jesus passed into the other world.
And what I'm referring to is you had all of the other gods. You had what was going on in Greece and what was going on in Rome and the pagan side of things, and certainly everything inherited through Egypt as well. You had all of that, and then this new wave coming in. Were they speaking about the same things that Jesus was?
That's hard to tell, because there is some indication that there were competitors to Jesus, but whether or not they were there then or invented later is another story.
Right.
Probably, if you had gone back to that era and to those places, you would have had a hard time even finding Jesus. He had a magical practice and a teaching ministry in Galilee, which was an area known for its rebellion, and it was very cowed during the time of Jesus because the Romans had sacked Sepphoris and killed at least a couple of thousand of its citizens by crucifying them on the hills around the city and sold the children and women into slavery. The Romans were not to be trifled with. So when he began to preach what would have been thought of in those days as sedition in Galilee, he didn't get much of a following. And therefore, he went down to Jerusalem to try to raise a more to get more of a response, because the Jews in the city of Jerusalem were very unhappy with a priesthood that was in service to the Romans and a government that was extremely expensive. They were having to sacrifice and pay a lot, and it was not a happy city. And he apparently went there in hopes of being heard and being listened to. His ministry in Galilee was something of a failure for this reason. But what happened when he went to Jerusalem gets me to the mystery that underlies all of this. All of it, Jimmy. Because there was something else going on here.
What was it?
It has to do with what happened in that tomb. Now, when I bring up the Shroud of Turin, people all immediately have a knee-jerk reaction. Oh, yeah, that was discovered to be a fraud. It's a medieval forgery. And we like that answer because it makes us comfortable. The real, true answer is incredibly uncomfortable. It is that there is plenty of scientific evidence that I detail in the book that has come about since that carbon dating that shows conclusively that something very, very strange happened to that piece of cloth. To be specific, the body in it, which was dead and in partial rigor mortis when this happened, turned into a highly energetic form of that sent a blast of neutrons through the shroud, and he turned into light, which is how he was then seen. And there follows the most interesting. Once you accept that this happened, and the science is really solid. I mean, people don't want to believe it because it means that our own tools that we use to deny and diminish the soul and to say it doesn't exist, and so we're okay. We don't have to live to the good because we just basically have to live this life and then we're gone, and that's all there is, and we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to look at ourselves. We just have to enjoy our egotistical journey through life and eat of the fruit of the tree.
Yeah, party.
Yeah, but the truth is different. The truth is very different. And the truth is contained in that shroud. Because that shroud, that piece of cloth, is indeed the strangest and most inexplicable thing on this planet. It's extraordinary. It was hit, the surface of it was hit by a burst of neutrons. There is no other way to explain that image on it. And if you look at the science carefully, as has been done, you find that there would have been neutrons and some protons. But what in the world caused a body to turn into that and then to be seen afterwards by people? They could see it. They could even they allegedly touch it, but I'm not so sure that's the case. Now, they have, but then here's another fascinating thing about this event. Jesus, you would think, well, he's turned into a being of light. He is what in those worlds that world would be called a god. People would have believed he was a real god. So why doesn't he walk up out of the garden and right through the walls into Jerusalem and declare his kingdom? The new kingdom is here. He would have changed the world.
Why didn't he do it? Why didn't he go into Herod and go, dude, I'm back?
Because that's the end of time.
Right.
And let me explain what he did instead. He immediately left the area for Galilee and was extremely careful about who he met. He met just enough people to make sure that his message would be transmitted. And these people were inflamed. These people, and think of yourself doing this. They literally dropped everything and walked out into a hostile world with nothing and began going into these crowded little cities filled with superstitious people with no police and very little law. And they would stand in the middle of the forum and begin shouting about this man who the Romans had killed and he'd come back to life. And they'd seen it with their own eyes. You don't do that as if it's not true. You don't give up your life for something that somebody told you or you want to believe. You give up your life because you saw it. And they did. They saw this. And then at the moment of the transfiguration, the apostles who were with him and who saw that, they witnessed what the end of time will bring, in the sense that they had completed their journey through time. They no longer needed to live in the world of change and time. They were finished, complete souls. And that's why they could experience that at that moment, because they had nothing more to learn. They were transcended.
Now, we've only got 2 minutes before the break, and we'll continue when we come back. But I want to be clear on something. Didn't the apostles describe, when they saw him again after the resurrection, he was a person, right? He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't, beaming rays of light. It was Jesus standing right in front of them.
Well, that's what they saw until the transfiguration, when when he was revealed as a being of light. Yes.
Right. How do you, with a straight face, explain that? And you've got gladiators, right? I mean, you've got Roman soldiers around you. You've got everybody observing you.
No, that's
you
not
could
quite
wind
true.
up on a cross.
He was very careful about who saw him and who didn't.
No, I'm talking about them and their testimony about the event. I mean, that's just great risk. You can wind up on a cross.
Oh yeah, people did.
Right.
None of the original group of disciples who went to spread his teaching survived. They were all killed, every one of them,
and imprisoned.
Well, imprisoned and then killed.
Right.
I mean, Roman prisons were no joke, but their methods of execution were really very depressing indeed. Paul was lucky that he only got beheaded because he was a Roman citizen.
Let's take our break right here. Let's get it out of the way. We've got so much more to talk about. We've got one segment left with Whitley Strieber. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Whitley's website, of course, is unknowncountry.com. Go and visit it. It is one of the reasons the internet was invented. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on jimmychurchradio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to wtih.com. That's wtih.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to wtih.com. That's wtih.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to wtih.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's wtih.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. His new book is Jesus, A New Vision, and you can go to unknowncountry.com. It's right there, and go and check it out. And Whitley, we've got a decision to make right now. So I'm going to ask you this directly, kind sir, since we are such close friends.
All right.
We've got a lot to discuss, and either I'm going to compact it all into one segment, or you can hang out with this for a little overtime at the bottom of the hour.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, all right. Whew. Okay, now, the gods of ancient Egypt, which bled over into Greece, of course, and then eventually versions of that wound up in Rome. But if we go back before the time of Jesus, was there another Son of God that walked the earth?
You mean another person like Jesus?
Yes, because I see similarities going on, and I think that all of us can go, wow, there's some things that happened with, some of the gods and the ancient gods of Egypt that are very...
I get where you're coming from. The moral clarity of the teaching of Jesus stands alone on planet Earth. There is no other moral teacher of this clarity. Buddha is a great teacher. In Hinduism and Islam, you find great teachings, but there is nowhere else except in the teachings of Jesus that the moral journey is concentrated into so few words. That's the power of the Beatitudes. There's no other place, no other teaching on earth like that. And if you live by the Beatitudes, you are also living necessarily by the 10 Commandments, by the 42 laws of Ma'at, and by really all of the journeys of goodness that there are. But not only are you living by them, if you really get deeply into the Beatitudes, what do they mean to me, and how can I express this in my life, and how can I experience these feelings in my daily life as I am moving through the world? You go on an incredibly rich spiritual journey, and you realize after a while, I want this. I want to make this my life. This is what I want. I want to be a creature of these Beatitudes. I want to belong to them. And there's nothing else in the world like it, I don't think.
Do you see similarities in other religions around the world where, it's like the old game of telephone that we grew up with, where the teachings of Jesus and his life through the game of telephone went into other religions where they may have had their own representation of it, but it was based on what went down in Jerusalem?
Well, it actually goes the other way, too. There's a definite echo of Buddhism in the Jesus teachings, and this is probably because Buddhist monks were in the area, in that they would have been traveling with traders along the Silk Road, and that would have meant that they would have been headed right to Alexandria, down through Palestine with their goods. And so it's very likely that Jesus came into contact with such people, and in fact, we know also that there was a Buddhist influence in the Sorbonne in medieval France because of the teachings of the great theological genius Meister Eckhart, who comes in the 14th century. So Buddhism played a role in Christianity. The degree to which I think Christian teaching plays a definite role in Islam, I don't see it so much in Hinduism, although there is a connection, obviously, between Krishna and Christ. The Christ idea and Krishna are very similar in many respects. The concentration of Egyptian religion on the process of ascension is very definitely influences Jesus's teaching, because it was an ascension teaching. And Judaism, as he lived it in those days, was not so directed toward ascension. The kingdom of heaven was not a journey, really, not certainly in the Greco-Roman pantheon. In those religions, the journey of the soul was very vaguely understood, and Sheol, the Jewish land of the soul, was a kind of afterthought almost. The religion, Judaism, was about living, not about ascending. The only real ascension religion in that area and that time was the Egyptian religion, and Jesus brought that idea of ascension into Palestine and into the Jewish world, and began to say that the soul can be perfected. That's what the Beatitudes are about, and it's what the parables are about.
Do you think that, and I certainly see these connections, Whitley, where I sit back and go, this is too much of a coincidence, in that resurrection is prevalent in many spaces, right? And the other part about that is, when we're talking about resurrection and the ascension, are we talking about space? Are we talking about the universe? Is heaven the universe and not necessarily a place in the clouds where angels hang out?
I don't think we understand the nature, the full extent of reality well enough to make a decision about what heaven is. It's certainly a state of mind, and Jesus said it many times, the kingdom is within you right now. Well, that's why Annie was always talking about joy. And I asked her once about enlightenment. What was enlightenment? And she said enlightenment is what happens when there is nothing left of us but love. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be dead and beyond this life in order to be in the kingdom of heaven. If you're in that state, you're in the kingdom of heaven during this life, just as Jesus said you could be.
Isn't it written like, when we look at it in those terms, it's almost like, and I'm not saying this negatively, I'm just saying this as fact, it's almost like science fiction. And when you go back that far in history where they didn't have the ideas of an Arthur C. Clarke, right? They didn't have, but they certainly wrote about it and spoke about it in terms that they shouldn't have had that kind of knowledge unless it was based on reality.
Well, I'm not quite sure where you're going there.
I'm talking about resurrection, light beings, heaven, angels, voices from the all of that is amazing science fiction.
Yeah, they were much more open to things like that. I think that Graham Hancock would agree that drugs were certainly in use in many of those religious practices, and in particular in the religious mysteries of the Roman and Greek worlds. But I don't think I would agree that Jesus was involved with the use of drugs, or that the Eucharist was a mushroom or something, because his teachings are too grounded. They're not
fanciful,
not richly hallucinatory.
Right. They're not fanciful. Right.
Right. Exactly. They don't have the same quality as the stories of the ascension of Osiris and of Adonis and the other sun gods at all, or the stories of the Greek gods, which have a very hallucinatory quality to them, and you would think that people were probably given hallucinatory drugs in the mysteries, and then were induced by the ceremonies to have predictable visions of the gods that they expected to see. There's a wonderful story. Diana Walsh Basulka, who wrote American Cosmic, wrote a terrific book before that about purgatory. And purgatory was believed to be a cave in Ireland. And there were many stories about purgatory and about people who had gone in that cave and seen it themselves all through the Middle Ages. But then the Renaissance comes along, and people begin to see things very differently. They begin to see the world not through the eyes of visionaries, through visionary eyes, but through eyes that are much more grounded in reality. And they went into the purgatory cave and came back reporting they hadn't seen anything but a cave. And so purgatory eventually was closed. The cave ceased to be a place of pilgrimage because people who had gone there and seen these extraordinary things now saw just a cave. And in that sense, all of this is somewhere within us until you get to Jesus and the Shroud of Turin. And it comes out into the physical world. And this doesn't surprise me, because I've experienced, and many people listening right now have experienced souls, other souls in a semi-physical state. I even experienced one who actually materialized as a fully human form at our cabin in upstate New York, and said he didn't say this in words, he didn't speak, but he indicated that he was from between the lives. And I meditated with him, as I said earlier, I believe, a lot. I'm for months, until we lost the cabin. In fact, the night before we lost the cabin, I said to them, this will be the last night I will ever be in this room. I will never enter it again.
Did you ever have conversations? I meant to ask you, did you ever have conversations about God and Jesus with them?
No.
Why not?
The only thing the Grays ever said to me was, when I was praying one night, listen to him calling on his gods. I don't have any gods anymore, but I do have the good. I am absolutely devoted to and hopefully connected with the good. This is what my life has become. I try every single moment of my life to live out of love, compassion, and humility. The visitors, the first lesson I got from them when they started to stop beating me up and started to respond to my desire to learn more, was a lesson in humility. And subsequently, my journey has been very much the journey Annie outlined when she said, enlightenment is what happens when there is nothing left of us but love. How can I journey toward that love? I asked her, compassion is the binding between love and humility. You can't be compassionate unless you have humility and love in your soul. And I asked her, I'm so curious about compassion, because what is it? What is it? Is it giving a quarter to a beggar, or I guess $1 nowadays? Or helping the poor? And what exactly is compassion? Because how can I be compassionate towards somebody who's murdered my friend or my child? Where is that compassion? Where do I find it? And this is very important to me. And her answer was really very simple. She said, each of us is all we have. And when you think about that, and you look at the other person, someone drives, I was witness a few years ago to a hit and run where an elderly woman was killed. And I saw the car driving off, but I couldn't see the license plate. It was too far away. It all happened a couple of blocks away from me. But I felt such contempt and hatred for whoever was driving that car, because they didn't want to even stop to help the woman, because they only cared about themselves. How do I bring my compassion to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can.
You have to try.
You have to try. I don't know. Yeah.
It's this is not getting to this place is not getting to the end of the journey, but it is definitely trying to be on the road.
Now, okay. Now this is gonna set us up for after the break when we go into overtime. You mentioned the Big Bang earlier, and I loved your context. The world of physics today and science, and I hope that I don't get struck by lightning and this is heresy, but the Big Bang, is that God, the creation of the universe at the start of time, at the beginning of everything?
No. The answer is no. it is not, and I will tell you why I know that. When the universe started, it formed. There were already laws. There was math before there was the reality as we know it. There has to have been, or it wouldn't have formed the way it did. There's even it formed according to a group of constants. There's one constant called the fine structure constant, which is very strange. We can understand all of the other constants, the Planck constant, all of the other Planck constant is the constant of where it's the closest two things can be without touching. That's the Planck constant. And we can measure that. And we can understand why it is what it is. But not the fine structure constant, which is the one constant that the whole form of the universe depends upon. And it drove a great physicist nuts, Wolfgang Pauli. He went down the road of mysticism and became a friend of Carl Jung, the mystical psychologist, in his journey to understand why this constant was as it was. It is as if this constant, arbitrary, with no apparent reason behind it, no rule that makes it necessary, it is simply what it is the shadow of God.
Yeah, he's the only, well, he's not the only, but he's certainly powerful in the way that him as a physicist literally went to the mountaintop, right?
Yeah, he sure did.
He did. He went to the mountaintop and seeking answers and seeing if there was a religious, spiritual connection to all of this, and maybe that's the answers that science is struggling with. And I hold him in the highest regards, man.
I do too. I think he was certainly a fabulous, wonderful mind. The wonderful thing about the human species is it has a habit of throwing off these blessed and glorious minds like him, or our more recent ones. We had Stephen Hawking, who was a wonderfully elegant mind, and Ramanujan, the marvelous mathematician who died so young, and so many other great. Richard Feynman had a marvelous, elegant, wonderful scientific mind. But they were all united in one thing. They wanted to believe that consciousness is within us, not that we are within consciousness.
They just couldn't figure out why. They couldn't get the math together. And
they still can't. I mean, the question of what is consciousness and where is it is so far unanswerable. It's known as the hard problem. And you know what's going to happen, by the way?
Tell me.
We're going to develop very quickly now, within the lifetimes of most people listening to this, there will be machines that are much smarter than we are. Will they become conscious?
I know. There's Feynman. Brian Greene speaks about this today, and so do other physicists. In that, the way that they are trying to get these answers is just maybe the smallest of particles, the smallest of anything, has a little teeny tiny bit of consciousness in it. And then when you get a mass of something together, like our brain, and those neurons start firing off, it's the collection of those atoms and particles where consciousness is amassed. And that's where it comes from. And it's a very interesting theory, but they're trying to figure it out. They don't have the answers. And that little, how do I say this? That little black and white right statement that is tangible to them, it makes sense because they don't want to go spiritual, right? They don't want to cross the line. They want it to be chemistry.
They will discover there is no line, that they are that there is no spiritual versus physical, that the physical world is the spiritual world.
Why are they so scared of it?
I think it's because they haven't made contact with themselves, and that there is a joy within us that actually doesn't care about any of that. And once you begin to live from that, you don't care either. Just
what you know who made that change? That transition was Wolfgang. And as soon as he felt like he answered the questions that he was struggling with, he was happy. He smiled, right? Yeah. And he changed because he gave in, right? He wasn't fighting it anymore.
Yeah, he gave himself to the question.
Right.
That's Annie. You know, I mention her so constantly because she has been my spiritual guide all of my adult life, and still is. I mean, you know, she didn't exactly die. She just changed. She just changed her approach, and she would say, "The human species is too young to have beliefs. What we need are good questions." And this is so true. I mean, we have been killing each other over these stupid beliefs for all of history, and probably before recorded history. And we're still doing it. We're doing it right now, today. Killing each other over beliefs. Religious beliefs and all kinds of other beliefs. Political beliefs right now are a big thing in this planet. And they always are when there's a lot of disruption in the climate change and so forth. That's why the Romans ended up in such a pickle, which hopefully we'll be able to get into a little bit later, because my book is the only place where the whole sweep of Roman history from the time of Jesus to the collapse of the empire is contained in just a few chapters, and with it is contained the process by which Jesus ceased to be the teacher, Jesus the Nazarene, and became Christ the God.
In 60 seconds or less before we take the break, were you reticent to publish? Were you in any way preparing yourself for the critics and possible attacks?
I don't really care anymore. I'm the guy who spent most of his adult life being laughed at for being raped. I'm the rectal probe man, Hardy har har.
Right.
I dealt with that injury for 20 years of the pain and the struggle, that the scarring that it left. And I was laughed at again and again and again. So no, I'll tell you this. I expect to be kicked around, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm going to tell my truth, period.
That's why you're Whitley Strieber, and that's why you're going to do some overtime right now. So let's take our break.
I'm going to get a glass of water first.
Absolutely. Whitley Strieber is with us. His new book is Jesus, A New Vision. I want you to go over to unknowncountry.com. Get registered. It is the best website on the web. I'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. Overtime is next.
To my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. We're doing some overtime. Very excited about this, and I've kind of saved the best for last, and as all of you know that are listening around the world, when I get to overtime, this is where I like to have a little bit of fun and explore things in another way. And with Whitley Strieber, and certainly this book, I've got questions, and I'm going to start with this. Whitley, we have in the known universe 1 trillion galaxies. Each one of those galaxies contains up to 1 trillion stars. Each one of those galaxies with those 1 trillion stars has at least 1 trillion planets. That's a lot of zeros. It's a lot of planets. That's a lot of life. Same God on each one of those planets in the 1 trillion galaxies in the universe?
Well, what I can say is this. There was an experiment, which I mentioned in my previous book, A New World, carried out in the Azores, where there's a group of very excellent telescopes. And they gathered light from quasars at opposite ends of the universe and ran that light through the double slit experiment, which is the basic experiment of quantum physics that shows that light is a particle is a wave until it is observed, whereupon it becomes a particle. And the light from both ends of the universe followed the law precisely. To me, that means that the field of consciousness understands itself in the same way universally. Does that get to your question? It's not the answer you expected, but I think it might be the correct one.
I had a guest on this show many years ago. I'm not going to say who it was. And he said that he was, now stay with me with this, Whitley, that he was whisked away to a distant star, to a planet. And on this planet, he went to a convention. Okay, not unlike the conventions that we have here. It's in an arena, and there's booths and exhibits, and he's walking on this planet, walking through this conference, this convention, and he comes up to a booth, and at this booth was Jesus signing autographed Bibles. Okay? Now, that is interesting in a lot of ways. But then he said he came back to Earth and then was visited by the same Jesus at his home. And that Jesus told him he's on every planet. Now, when you hear something like that, is that similar to what you were just trying to explain to me with the double slit experiment with dual quasars?
No, I think someone was speaking through the lens of their beliefs about something that they don't fully understand would be the most hopefully accurate way I can think of describing it. They have a belief in Jesus as a deity, and if you're going to believe the doctrine as promulgated in the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, then you have to believe that Jesus is everywhere in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But why that would be true, I don't know. There may be, I would be surprised, given my experience with the visitors, which has been a very difficult and complex one. I would think that there are many different ways of understanding goodness in this universe, and not all of them are at all like ours. There may be very different relationships to reality. Well, for example, take the bees. They don't even see, they see different light than we do. What if a highly intelligent species has a completely different set of perception, a completely different perceptual system? It's going to have a completely different vision of reality, and probably an entirely different moral compass as well. And maybe one that would seem to us to transgress our own ideas of good and evil. We can't know the answers to these questions. And it gets back to what Annie said. We have to, we're too young to have beliefs. We need good questions. And I think a good question is, what is a moral constant? We know the fine structure constant exists, and the other constants that make up the universe. Are there also constants on a moral level and a spiritual level? We don't know that.
Could we handle the truth? There's a lot of talk about disclosure these days, and you're a big part of that. And of course, the most overused statement in ufology, well, if a flying saucer lands on the White House lawn, right? Okay, we've heard it all before. But if that does happen, and that ladder, the stairs come down, and it's live TV, and we're all waiting to see E.T. for the what if Jesus comes down those stairs?
That would mean that we are in the hands of the most powerful practical joker that has ever been known.
Right.
That's what it would mean to me. If
would you be surprised if that happened like that?
Well, I would be very amused, and I would think that it probably was something other than what it appeared to be, and I would think that it would be conceivably quite dangerous.
Do you think it would be E.T. just messing with us because they know of the icons and the religious icons that are around the world, and they would just be imitating?
There is something very sacred going on here, and I don't think anybody's going to be playing games like that.
Yeah. I often wonder, with all of this, that in the event that happens, when E.T. or any intelligent civilization, Whitley, would have a lot of time to study this planet and to study us and what we're about. And so to not freak us out, they would have to have some kind of persona represent them and not necessarily them physically as they are, right? I don't know if Elvis steps off that flying saucer, right? I don't know. But they don't want to freak us out, So
I don't know what they want or don't want to do. I do know that some of the things that happen here happen because of entities from other worlds, and but what these entities are, and what those other worlds are open questions as far as I'm concerned. The government started calling UFOs UAPs because they describe them as unidentified aerial phenomena because it's not clear that they're even machines. It's not clear what they are.
That is a great point. And you brought up Dr. Pasolka earlier.
Yeah.
Now, there has been, and I know that you're on top of your game, there has been an awful lot of chatter in the UFO community, and it seems to go back to Washington and the Pentagon and possibly even the CIA, that there is a religious component here with this.
Well, there certainly is, and that's why they bring in people who have, anyone as long as it's not me. Diana is a staunch Catholic, and there's a level of comfort with that. There's a level of comfort with people who are part of the conventional religious world, but I'm not a part of any conventional world. I have become very deeply connected with the visitors in all of their complexity, because they are this is a very complex presence. It is not a bunch of evil aliens, and it is not a bunch of angels either. They are more complex than we are, and we are really complex. If humanity, if there was if we could travel the stars, and we found a planet with a living species on it, intelligent species, not like us, and who had never been able to leave their own planet or just had only the vaguest inkling of the nature of the universe like we do, think of what would happen to them when we arrived, assuming that anyone could go easily. And in a second, I'll get to why that might be literally true. Assuming that anyone could go easily, that would mean religious people of 100 different religions might go. Scientists of all kinds of different disciplines might go. Academics of all kinds of different disciplines. Criminals looking to exploit them. Sadists, masochists, all kinds of people. Ordinary people, just curious, might go. And maybe they all would have the same one law. You must not let them see who you will be punished. And if that was the only thing that you had to keep yourself hidden, it would look to them very much like the visitor's presence looks to us right now, because it would be like their presence. I got into this very deeply with them. I've been face to face with some of the most extraordinarily evil things you can imagine, and have learned also from them ways of finding my moral focus that are deeper than anything that any religion here has ever hoped to teach me. And yes, there's a huge religious component. And no, I don't think that trying to address them through the lens of our doctrinal religions is going to be successful. No.
When you say evil, is it evil by our standards? Do they see themselves as bad or negative or evil?
No one sees themselves as evil.
Right.
The Nazis thought they were doing good.
Right.
They thought they were accomplishing an extraordinary, heroic thing. The communists, they all think that. The people here. I spent many years exploring the Inquisition, and I read a lot of the translated trial documents. There's not too many. I wish I don't have any Spanish to speak of, but it was one thing that I read that I will never forget, and that is that at one of the autos da fe where people were being burned to death for no good reason, basically because it was an act of insanity. People had been driven insane by this lunatic religion of the time. And a little child said to his mother that they stank to people burning. And the mother said, the stench smells sweet to Jesus and his mother in heaven, because these are heretics who are burning. Now, what if they bring that level of madness to us?
Right.
You never know.
Right.
And we can't address this through the lens of the doctrinal religions. It's simply not enough. Or just through the lens of science. It's not enough. They are an immensely complex presence that is vividly alive, spiritually and physically. And there's no difference between the two with them. You want to experience something extraordinary, try being out of your body with the Greys. I've been there and done that, and believe me, it's not like you would think. I can't even put it into words. I can't put it into words, Jimmy.
Do we have, and to that end, Whitley, do we have something to fear? The government right now, and certainly the Navy and others out there, when they talk about, UFOs and ET and UAPs, the threat narrative is all we really hear, right? That we have something to be afraid of.
The first mistake that was made in 1947 when this was viewed as a military matter. We had just come off of World War II. The communists were rattling their sabers. And when this occurred, this appearance of this machine, this distressed machine in Roswell, took place, it was thought of as a scout ship from another planet and possibly the precursor of an invasion force. Because this is the mindset that was present then. And that probably was never what it was. In Diana's book, Tyler calls it it's another site. It's not Roswell, the donation site, because they view it as a place where something was intentionally crashed as a donation to us. And certainly a lot of material from there has been bled out into the industrial complex, and medical devices have been made from it, and weapons probably too, as far as I know. But all of this is it all started in the wrong place. It should have started with philosophers and people who were on objective spiritual journeys, not through the lens of religious doctrine. But there weren't people like that around who were ready and able to do this. It just didn't work that way. The only people who, like Art Exon said to me, General Exon, he said, Whitley, everyone from Truman on down knew that this was not of this world within 24 hours of our finding it. And, but what they didn't know was that it was not of this world also in a deeply spiritual sense. And, when I started out with the visitors, I was having a hell of a time. I was I was treated very brutally. I experienced, and my wife experienced, things that were truly evil. But it was only when I started basically wanting to understand, why could I change this? Was there a way for me to deal with this? It had nothing to do with religious doctrine. What changed it was finding and really working toward the good. And now my relationship with the visitors is in that context, and that's how they relate to me. They know that I am on a journey toward the good. Now, is that going to really work out if you're trying to deal with them as with arms and weapons and so forth? The answer is no.
No.
And I'll tell you, I know a lot about the way the Greys are and the way they think. They're going to let these people, if these people are trying to build weapons against them, they're going to let them believe that their weapons work. But one of the blonde people told me many years ago that if you start a war with the Greys, they will never let you win, and they will never let you stop fighting. And he said that. I have never heard such sadness in a voice. And I thought to myself, he speaks from experience. We don't want to go down that path. We want to find our way with them. And that's not going to be easy, and you're not going to do it through religion. You only are going to do it through your own goodness. And you have to fight every inch to make your goodness matter to them, believe me. But the abductees are probably going to be thrown under the bus anyway when this starts to come out.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that too. I've been talking about that for a couple of months now. What's going to happen with that community?
Well, you already see the social engineering starting. Week before last in the New Yorker, there was a long puff piece about Elizabeth Loftus, who is the psychologist who specializes in false memory syndrome. And then there was one of the websites that I believe is associated with the intelligence community in our world recently published a big thing about how hypnosis it creates false memories. And Michio Kaku is beating the drums of getting in touch with aliens would be a terrible idea. It would be very dangerous. And he's bound to know of the abduction phenomenon. And I know that I'm pretty sure Stephen Hawking was told about it when his reaction was the same. It would be extremely dangerous to get in touch with aliens. And here are us close encounter witness sitting out here in touch with aliens. And this whole thing is going to be seen in the context of a military confrontation of some kind. And as I say, I think we're going to be thrown under the bus in two ways. The first way is the media is going to be beating the drums that it's all false memories, forgetting all of the physical evidence, the multiple witness evidence, the enormous amount of human suffering that has been involved in this, forgetting all of that, and it's all false memories, ha ha ha, the rectal probe man and his buddies, and so forth, on the one hand. And on the other hand, the public ones who don't shut up, I think are probably going to be shut up.
Whitley, where can everybody go and listen to your podcast? You're also with us on KGRA, of course, and there is the new book.
I'm on KGRA on Saturday nights, and you can listen to it on unknowncountry.com. You can listen to it on TuneIn Radio. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts. Whether you're a subscriber to Unknown Country or not, you can listen to it you can listen to it as a subscriber or as a non-subscriber. You can watch on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is now all video when that works, which didn't this week, but it will next week. And so there's a lot of ways to get to Dreamland and to Unknown Country. I've been doing Dreamland now for 21 years.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I love it, and I love it every week. I just had a great conversation today with Von Brashler, and it's going to be on Friday, and it's going to be really cool.
Thank you so much, Whitley. And the new book, tell us about that.
The new book is Jesus, A New Vision. It will not disturb you if you are a Christian. And if you are not a Christian, it will enable you to find your way into the most powerful and beautiful moral teaching that is there, that Jesus left. And without becoming a Christian.
Yeah, without becoming a Christian.
Absolutely not.
And all the information on how to get the book is at Unknown Country.
Amazon. Just get it at Amazon.
There you go. Whitley,
and you can get the audiobook too. I read all my own audiobooks, and I'm a good reader, so you'll enjoy it if you listen to any of them on Jesus, A New Vision, New World, or Afterlife Revolution.
Thank you so much, my friend. Enjoy yourself, and we'll circle back in a couple of days. Thank you so much, Whitley.
You're the good guys. Jimmy, thank you.
Thank you, Whitley. Whitley Strieber. Again, unknowncountry.com, and the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. What a great conversation. Went pole to pole, and did a extra segment of Overtime with Whitley Strieber tonight. Thank you so much, Whitley. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. Spaceboymusic.com. That intro was recorded on that guitar right there. That's the official Spaceboy guitar here in the bunker. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Big thanks to Whitley Strieber. Tomorrow night right here, Serena Wright Taylor. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.